There was this sort of career petty thief in Chinatown named Anthony Bennett.
He was considered a specialist. He only stole plants.
Everything we put outside and anything expensive, they put it on top of the bike and then he just go.
If we had tried to stop him or keep him till the police came, we would be in trouble for doing that.
Because he was doing it for years and years, we didn't actually think anybody was ever going to do anything or be able to catch him. What he did was the only thing anybody could do to actually finally catch the guy.
David Chen was carrying on honest business, working long hours. He didn't look for trouble. Trouble, in the name of Anthony Bennett, looked for him.
That day, Anthony Bennett shows up with his bicycle.
He stole some plants. It was not noticed at the time. They had surveillance cameras, so someone realized what had happened, showed David Chen.
And he could see that he rode away on his bicycle. Then he came back. When he came back, David went up and said to him, "You owe me some money." And he argued with David and then suddenly took off.
And Mr. Chen at that point has a choice. Either I can let this guy go and he'll be back to steal again, or I can chase after him and try and apprehend him.
So David chased him.
He was on a bike. He kind of threw the bike at Chen and took off down the alleyway. They catch him down the alleyway and around the corner. Mr. Bennett fights back.
One of David's delivery trucks came back and saw the chase. And so the truck came up and helped David. They got some twine and they tied his hands so he couldn't kick them or hit them anymore.
And they ended up getting him in the back of their van and they're driving him back to the store. Meanwhile, a couple of people who had seen this called 911 and the police came. And at that point, David Chen sees the police. He stops the van, he gets out, he opens up the back door and he says, "Here's the thief."
They thought, great, the police is here now.
The police were a little bit taken aback by the circumstances of the situation.
They are taking this case not as shoplifting, they are taking this case as kidnapping.
He is arrested, Chen, and Chen's colleagues are arrested.
He carries a box cutter because he's forever opening cartons to dump out, say, lettuce or oranges to sell.
In the eyes of the police, those were concealed weapons.
The box cutter never figured in the chase and the arrest, but they still charge him. And because of those two serious offenses, he had to spend the night in the police station and go to bail court the next day.
The original charges were assault and forcible confinement and kidnapping and carrying a concealed weapon.
Before David Chen ever gets to know Anthony Bennett, and before this thing happened, there's already a pre-existing condition of frustration among the grocers over the fact that they are not getting the support from the police that they want.
They felt so helpless. They didn't feel like the police served them. They felt like that the police ruled. And in David's case, ruled with an iron fist.
To the police, there are too many shoplifting. To the police, there are too many cases like that. What will you do when you see somebody shoplift? So you say, "Mr. Shoplifter, do you mind to stay behind? We just call the police. It might take about 3 hours, maybe 5 hours. So, I'm sorry for your inconvenience. Would you mind to stay?" Do you think any shoplifter will actually stay?
The way the law read, you could only enact a citizen's arrest in a situation where you catch someone red-handed.
The problem for us was arguably the crime had already been committed 59 minutes earlier.
in shoplifting, it's really hard to pin down when it was that the person was committing the crime. Because when they were taking the stuff off the shelves, they were still in the store, capable of paying for it. Once they've left the store, they have finished committing the crime already. And according to the law at that time, you're not entitled to arrest them. Mathematically, it'd be fascinating to say at which infinitesimal point was the person actually doing the shoplifting. It's quite absurd, I thought.
So despite the public outcry in David Chen's favor, he, at the end of the day, was technically breaking the law.
I was frustrated that I was completely ignored by all levels of government. Nobody responded. I just got very frustrated and I thought, why not try the system itself? And I called my own MP.
Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to rise today to introduce a bill that would amend the criminal code where a citizen's arrest is only permissible if a perpetrator is in the process of committing a crime.
It was called the Lucky Moose Bill. It really addressed the issue of reasonableness of time.
When just such an incident occurred last year in Toronto's Chinatown, the Minister of Immigration vowed to change the law. A year later, all they've delivered is false hope and disappointment.
The whole thing just felt like that they were sending a message to all the store owners. They're going to hang David from the highest tree to make sure no one else would try to do what he did.
The Crown did not look very good going into this. They looked like they were on the wrong side of history.
Anthony Bennett became their good guy. He had to be their star witness, to a point that even though he, in the meantime, has stolen from someone else.
I installed the camera because of him, and I recorded that, and I called the police and showed them.
He actually, at some point, gave me quite a lot of admissions. And, most importantly, got him to admit that when he came back the second time, he was there to steal again. He testified on a Wednesday, and then on the Friday, he was arrested for charges that had occurred months earlier. Now, I don't know why he was arrested on the Friday, why he wasn't arrested months earlier. I can't explain why the police did what they did, but it seemed odd.
I remember that day very well because when we showed up in the morning, there were so many cameras on the sidewalk that there were tourists taking pictures of the cameras. And the judge decided from the first round of stealing to Anthony Bennett showing up that it's a continuous act. He solved my math problem.
By the time this was all over and David Chen had been found not guilty on all charges, David Chen was a bit of a folk hero.
Throughout that 1.5 years, the media make him as a celebrity.
Now that Mr. Chen has been acquitted of all charges, will the Prime Minister stand up today, adopt my bill, pass it, or will he continue to allow victims of crime to be victimized twice?
Generally, politicians want to latch on somebody who is famous.
And so Harper and his retinue decide to show up at the Lucky Moose.
Of course, the media loved it. People were climbing all over for a good angle.
The government, which had been following the debate all the way through, said, you know what, we're going to write our own bill.
David and I got invited to go and testify in Ottawa. We flew in together. There was a real feeling of a Mr. Smith goes to Washington about it because the moment we arrived, we were grabbed by people left and right. So many people just came up to say, oh, I just want to shake your hand, David.
We store owners don't want to fight. We just want to make a living for our family.
People have a deeply ingrained sense of justice, and their sense of right and wrong was really offended by the prosecution of David Chen.
This new section adds that a person can effect this citizen's arrest within a reasonable time after the event took place.
In Chinese, the word democracy is made up of two characters. That means citizen and decide. Citizens decide means democracy. These proposed amendments take a step towards giving Canadians more chances to decide and shape their lives.
We're not comfortable with people taking care of themselves. I think it's a cultural thing. It's very deep-seated. But because we don't recognize it, that's why you can see, as David's case demonstrates, we're so conflicted.